Good afternoon. I, Matthew Tubicine, am running for the presidential nomination of the Libertarian Party, MAT, M-A-T, 2024. The Chinese have a very old saying. It's kind of a curse slash blessing that goes like this: May you live in interesting times. We are living in Novueval times. MIT did a study back in 1972 that said there was going to be widespread societal collapse around 2040. Uh, this was actually one of the first computer studies that was done. They ran uh, they ran a number of variables and changed the parameters of those variables so that they would get different results, because you never know how things are going to change in the future. But the one that seemed most probable was widespread societal collapse in 2040, in or around 2040. And this study was revisited recently by a member of an international accounting firm, one of the big four, actually. And she said, "Yeah, we're right on track. We reran the numbers, and yep, that's where we're going." And you got things like population, pollution, food production, and access to food, industry, resources, natural resources. Not only our ability to extract them, but are we are we overusing them? And yeah, we are. There are two things. At least one they did not know about. One, they may have had an inkling, but they were just starting to study it. And by they, I mean the larger community. And that is testosterone levels and sperm counts going down, and climate change. They, and by they again, I mean the larger community, they were aware of the possibility of climate change and that it was probably happening, but they were just at the beginning of studying that. So there was not there was not really any good information coming out, not like we have nowadays. The thing is, it looks like widespread societal collapse by 2040. And as I just mentioned, the diminishing sperm counts, I would like to go over that because I think that's going to play a very big role, as big a role or possibly bigger than climate change. And I think a huge part of that is, as the population starts to decline, you are going to see the elite, the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, and whoever they turn out to be when this comes along, because we're looking probably somewhere around 2036. I'm thinking October 3rd in the early afternoon. But once they know that the population is definitely declining, they are going to freak. And they, in conglomeration, in toto, are the ones who make the laws, enforce the laws, and they're going to be trying to do all kinds of crazy stuff, not only to stop this, which, how do you stop this? Well, you stop practicing the kind of capitalism we're practicing, because that's what's producing the toxins that are affecting us. Well, they can't do that. They can't stop. They can't stop doing the very things that are so harmful that they even harm themselves and their kin, because that's what makes them money. They don't care about air, water, or food. They want money and power. That's all that's important to them. They are addicted to this, well, to these material things and processes, money and power. And they're addicted to this mindset that this is what makes me great. So by extension, it makes humanity great, which is total bullshit. It's kind of the trickle down philosophy. The more money I have, the better it is for everybody. No, that's not how it works. The better the quality of our air, water, and food is, the better it is for everybody, whether there's any money in the world or not. Consider that we went millennia, very many of them, without anything approaching money in our groups. It was only basically the advent of agriculture that money came into being, more or less. We had all kinds of different things that we could trade, certainly, but this thing that is good for buying anything else, we didn't have something like that. Yeah, a little bit of gold and silver, but when you're living a lifestyle that we consider that primitive, stuff like money is not important. But as our whole economic system is kind of a giant Ponzi scheme, which relies on ever more young people entering the workforce, and that's going to change. In fact, it's changing already, and people are freaking out about it. Uh, they're going to lose it. And by them, I mean those at the top who think they have everything figured out and they know how to plan and make laws and do this, that, and the other that's for the benefit of everybody, which is all just bullshit. As the population starts to decrease, I believe more than any other factor that we've ever had to deal with, whether it's climate change or having a fiat currency that is backed by nothing and the government is just printing willy nilly until the US dollar is going to be basically worthless, all of these things, this will not shake the power structure the way a decreasing population will. And you can tell this by the fact that the right is already freaking out about the fact that they're being replaced. And I don't think this replacement theory is, well, just when you look at it that way, that we're being replaced, I don't believe that is automatically like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I think that is happening, but I think that is largely just happenstance. We're reproducing a lot less because we're wealthier and better educated, and women, when they tend to be wealthier and better educated, have smaller families to no families. And beyond choice, well, on the man's side, our sperm counts and our testosterone levels are going down, which is directly, both of these things are directly attributable to capitalism. Now, I'm not saying women being wealthier, being empowered, uh, is a bad thing. I'm sure a lot of those on the right think it is because, their ideal is, yeah, a woman barefoot and in the kitchen with, screaming babies hanging around their ankles. That's their idea. Uh, in fact, I don't think the population diminishing is a bad thing either. I think the population diminishing because there are so many toxins in our air, water, and food that our sperm counts are going down is a bad thing. I think smaller families because of choice is great. I think smaller families because it's thrust upon us is just outrageously self destructive. And the right, as much as they decry this stuff, and they will talk about testosterone levels going down, they're aware of at least that aspect of it. Maybe they don't even want to talk about sperm counts because they don't like the word, or they just don't want to admit it. But the thing is, they'll say, yeah, we're being replaced. Testosterone levels are going down. And it's the left's fault. No, it's not. It's capitalism's fault. It's capitalism's. And by capitalism, let us very quickly define what capitalism, as practiced in this country, is. It's a carnival freak show of an economic system we euphemistically call capitalism, or CFOAESWECC. Now, the way I say it that way with all those words is because to accurately describe it with all your cronyism and your oligarchy and your plutocracy and your idiocracy and everything else involved, plus, we actually do have some democracy. We actually do have some free market capitalism, not much, but some. But we also have socialism, basically for the rich. There's just so much involved. Our system is so complex that it would take about 15 words to adequately describe it, whether you're talking about our political system or our economic system. And this is part of the problem that we suffer. It is just such a muddled mess. Just look at the Federal Reserve and try and figure out how that works. Well, they have made it so complicated intentionally so that people really can't quite wrap their heads around how does the money go from the mint to the banks to my pocket. Basically, it's simple. And yeah, this is an oversimplification, but this is just the easiest way to look at it. The Federal Reserve, which is owned by bankers and run by bankers, writes a blank check to the Treasury. The Treasury gives the Federal Reserve money, which every step along the way, the Federal Reserve is also getting a cut, meaning they're getting a percentage. They're skimming off the top. Basically, they're like the mafia in Las Vegas. But basically, the Federal Reserve writes a blank check. The Treasury Department gives them money. They decide, the banks then, who gets money, and that's basically it. They just write a blank check. The Treasury gives them money, and then they decide who to lend that money to, that free money, so that they can get interest on it. So it's just all a scam, and we know this. I mean, everything they do is a matter of public record. It's just so convoluted and complicated that, believe me, I have watched a lot of videos on people who are very well versed on exactly how the whole process works and can explain it in relatively simple terms that even I can understand. And as I said, I've watched a lot of these videos, and they all made perfect sense as I was watching them. But the system, even as they explained it, was so complicated that 10 minutes later, it's like, wait, how did that work again? But basically, the Treasury Department just gives the Federal Reserve money, which the Federal Reserve parses out to the banks, and then the banks take that free money and lend it out and get interest on it. Again, that's an oversimplification, but if you look at how it actually works, it is such a muddled mess. It's like our tax laws. They don't want to make the tax laws simple. They don't want to make a one-page tax law for everybody across the board, because then everybody would see if it's actually a fair system or if some people are just getting away with murder. And yeah, that might sound extreme, almost hysterical. They're getting away with murder. But when you consider that the capitalists in this country have produced an economic system that is so to their benefit and is so harmful to us humans, all of us, including them, that it may end up killing us, then yeah, this is a screwed up system. But along those lines, I'm asking everybody to prepare. And the biggest part of that for me is, okay, the system's screwed up. We're doing things that will ultimately be the demise of humanity if we not only don't stop doing them, but actually reverse, start taking these toxins, the CO2, the EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals out of the environment. That's going to be a lot of work. I mean, we're not going to be making rocket ships and electric cars and computers and AI and logarithms and all this stuff that are like all these great words that describe how we live our life these days. All that crap's just going to go away because we're going to be focused on, oh my God, humanity is actually dying. We need to reverse the processes that we've been practicing for decades now, or we're going to die. But there's two things going on, basically, for me. First of all, I don't know if that's actually going to happen. I think it will. I think that in itself will take decades. But I think for me, my generation, the one that comes immediately afterwards, probably the one that comes after that, there's going to be a little bit of a grace period where if we accept reality and start to do something about it, we can diminish its impact. After that, all bets are off. It's just going to get worse very quickly. And as I said, population will be going down. Even the right sees that, but they're only concerned about white people. They don't care about the rest of the world, whether they're increasing or decreasing. The fact is, everybody's decreasing, not decreasing, but the level of growth is starting to taper off. Some of that because of choice, some of that because it's thrust upon us. We just can't have as many children. And on top of that, also, our life expectancy here in the US just started going down during Trump's administration. No surprise there. But yeah, that's another thing we're dealing with. But what I want to impart to you, because this is what I am practicing, is whatever happens, don't freak out. We've already had enough of that during the pandemic and the insurrection, and there's going to be a lot of crazy, stupid times ahead. If you practice freaking out now, you're going to get really good at it by the time TSHTF, which we haven't even seen yet. But what I do is I actually have a Venn diagram that I made that I practice, and the three main things, the three circles that overlap are gratitude, acceptance, and cultivating a growth mindset, which are the three things I think are fundamental to getting where I want to be, which where all three circles overlap. In the middle there, I put clarity. That's the word I chose to use to describe the state of mind I want to achieve. Others may say equanimity, but I think equanimity is just part of the definition of this thing, this place I want to be when I'm doing everything right, if and when that ever happens. But just getting better psychologically, not freaking out about what may very well be inevitable, and start to prepare. Start to prepare so that you've got a buffer zone between you and worst case scenario. At least you have some supplies, and as you increase the amount of that stuff and your knowledge, if worst comes to worst, and we actually have to go out and hunt and gather and forage. Well, we did that for hundreds of thousands of years. This is not something we're incapable of. We just freak out about the very thought of that because CFOAESWECC has done everything that it can to make us afraid of nature and disdainful of living in nature. So that is the cultural conditioning that we're up against. So I would say prepare your supplies, prepare your mindset, prepare your community. Start to meet like-minded people, people who will watch your back. Have this agreement. If things really start to break down, especially politically, so if we live in a world without rule of law, we're going to have a community at least that has a rule of law and is willing to defend itself because it may come to that. I don't think that's going to be anything we have to worry about for maybe a couple of decades, but I don't know. The MIT study that said widespread societal collapse by or around 2040, the graph shows around 2036 is when the population starts to decline. And that's when the capitalists are really going to start to freak and things are going to change drastically politically because they're going to try to make all kinds of laws to force people to go to work if there are no more young people entering, or at least not as many young people entering the workforce. They will freak. In order for them to put another zero before the decimal point on their bank balance, they will do anything, no matter how harmful it is to humanity or even they and theirs. That's what these people are like. They will destroy humanity to make another nickel. That's what they're like. That's what we have to put up with. That's what we've come to accept as a culture and society, even celebrate this mode of behavior. But we're going to definitely have to turn that around 180 degrees when things start getting really stupid. So I would suggest prepare your material stuff, prepare your psychology, prepare your community. And in terms of being prepared, something I haven't started to do yet, so I don't really talk about it much, but start to learn something about medicine, start to learn something about communication. Um, Also energy. I've got a few different energy sources, backup generator and a solar panel, but it's not ideal, and I'm always learning more and trying to up my game. But there you go. Just remember, you're going to start wherever you're at. Don't feel overwhelmed or intimidated. Have a growth mindset. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to get better at it. However clumsy or foolish or whatever you look like starting out, well, basically, so does everybody. Don't let it worry you. All right. I thank you for watching. And if you didn't watch, well, what's wrong with you, man? And remember, growth is rebellion. They want you to stay small. In order for them to succeed, they need your complicity. And one last thing, summer is coming. This one will be long. Gird your loins. Talk to you soon.